The Atelier series is something that I've really come to like, and it's already been 4 years since I got into the franchise on the PlayStation Vita. I haven't gone all the way back to the original games of the series, but I've played all of the Arland, Dusk, Mystery, and Ryza games. It's pretty crazy to think about. After all, we've gotten 12 Atelier games on handhelds in the past 4 years. Today we're here to talk about the Ryza games. The original Ryza changed a good bit of the formula, and its sequel enhances those systems and gives it a lot more polish. Here is my review of Atelier Ryza 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Set a few years after the events of the first game, Ryza is going about her day-to-day life when two big tasks are set before her. She's given a strange orb-shaped artifact with the request of finding out what it is and where it came from. At the same time, she travels away from the island when one of her old friends contacts her about some alchemy-related discovery in the capital. Arriving in strange territory, she reunites with those friends and starts exploring ancient ruins, aiming to see if they have a connection with alchemy. The story is pretty solid overall, though it's worth noting that Atelier Ryza 2 has a lot more slice of life segments, making it feel a little closer to the older Atelier games than Ryza 1 did. The only thing I really didn't like about the story is that it got a little too anime tropey at times with some of the new characters. Thankfully, they didn't really do anything to the personalities of the old characters. Lots of times in scenes, I was thinking, oh no, Ryza is about to do some super cliche anime thing, and I was always surprised when she didn't. When it comes to gameplay, this is a turn-based RPG with item synthesis and combat elements. Now, being a direct sequel to Atelier Ryza, a lot of the gameplay systems are very similar, but we've also got a lot of differences and enhancements. To FYI you guys, as I get a lot of these questions on all of my Atelier videos, there is no time limit here just like in Ryza 1 and no English dub for voice acting. The only voice option we've got is Japanese with subtitles. This first comparison isn't too drastic, but it's worth noting that the hub town of Ryza 2 is significantly larger and more standardized than the small island town in the first game. The biggest change is that alchemy levels have been completely removed from the game, and learning recipes is very different. In Ryza 2, you gain SP by finishing side quests and performing synthesis. You can use those SP points on a skill tree to unlock new recipes. With alchemy levels gone, there pretty much is no restriction on what you can make and when. All you gotta do is unlock the recipe, gather the materials, and you can craft it whenever you want. Now let's dive into how this game progresses. You've got a large hub city filled with NPCs and shops, along with huge areas and dungeons that you can explore to gather items and fight enemies. The story advances forward in a pretty easy way, be it by request, talking to an NPC, or going to a certain area. And the game helps you remember, as there is a story menu that summarizes everything going on at the moment, and the map will highlight doors and NPCs that are green to remind you of what direction you need to be going. The only real new part of story progression is the exploration diary. As you go through all of this area's special ruins, you'll get little clues, basically you trying to decipher what happened there. You then take all of those clues and try to piece them together in your exploration diary so you can figure out what's going on and move on to the next one. Outside of main story progression, there is a lot of optional stuff this time around. As the story progresses forward, you constantly unlock new slice of life and goofy little scenes around the hub with various characters, and just as many optional side quests if you need a little extra money or you really want that special little doll to decorate your atelier with. Now, when we exit the hub and get out into the dungeons, everything is just as huge and open as it was in the first Ryza. The environments are absolutely beautiful to explore around while you're gathering items and fighting against enemies. This game also adds a lot of new exploration options where you can interact with the environment. You can now swim both above and underwater, climb up, find walls, and use a grappling hook to jump across large gaps. But let's not stay on that too long, we need to talk about the combat system. Ryza 1 had a real-time system that kind of melded action and turn-based gameplay, which is mostly still here, but with a few tweaks and extra polish to make it feel a little bit more fluid. You still only control one character and wait for your gauge to fill up so you can do an action, be it an item, attack, or skill. And the AP system still works the same as it did before, where you attack enemies and build up an AP pool the entire party can use. But we now have button shortcuts for skills instead of an extra menu you have to cycle through, and skill animations have been significantly shorter to feel a lot more seamless. Mechanically, it isn't really that different, but the presentation of it makes it feel a lot more seamless and fluid. And finally, let's talk about the Alchemy System. In all of these Atelier games, you take materials that you gather around the map and get from fallen enemies and combine them using alchemy to create something new. The actual process of combining items has pretty much not been altered at all from Ryza 1. You've still got the same branch system for different categories of materials. The only major difference is what I mentioned earlier in how you unlock new recipes. Since alchemy levels are gone, you no longer have to grind synthesis to reach a certain experience level to make your next story item. You can make it as soon as you have what you need. Finally, let's talk about content and length, which is pretty standard for the series. Across the entire game, series veterans can easily get done in about 25 to 30 hours. And newcomers to the series, with all of the learning they'll have to do for the systems, it'll probably take about 40 to 45 hours. Next, let's dive into presentation, which is a little bit different. The game is visually detailed and absolutely beautiful, though handheld mode has been tweaked. Basically, they lowered the graphical quality and made it a lot more jaggy in handheld mode, something I initially thought was done in order to maintain a smooth frame rate. But the further I got, the more I saw those big frame drops and freezes when outside of docked mode. Though in both modes there is a very odd vertical line texture glitch. I noticed this from pretty much the very beginning of the game. On characters' faces in cutscenes and some environments, you'll see these weird vertical lines that kind of glitch in and out of the textures. Now when we get onto performance, the frame rate is a nice and smooth 30 frames per second. We also have some slight improvements on loading for battles. That's all I have to say about performance, so now let's go into battery life. On the original model, Atelier Ryza 2 has a battery range of 3 hours and 4 minutes up to 3 hours and 52 minutes. On the Nintendo Switch Lite, it has a range of 3 hours and 11 minutes up to 4 hours and 13 minutes. And on the Redbox V2 2019 model, it has a range of 4 hours and 46 minutes up to 5 hours and 49 minutes. In conclusion, this game brings Ryza and most of her crew back for new adventures in new places. Now on the downside, the game has some odd texture glitches and its story gets a little too tropey for its own good at times. But for those that enjoyed the first game, the system has been polished and enhanced to be more fluid and fun. Some fans may not like alchemy levels being gone, but it's still an improvement in almost every way. Reviews to go rates Atelier Ryza 2 for the Nintendo Switch an 8.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a good day.